Last time, Goku was finally able to accomplish what he wanted. Gohan was sent home, and now Frieza's defeated. However, Goku now seems to be stuck out in space with Vegeta and Nappa, at least for a little bit. Also, Raditz awakens something terrifying. So what happens from here on out? We'll be seeing all that and more in this part 6 of What If Raditz Took Gohan. Raditz continues to curiously observe Cumber, not knowing who he is or what he's doing. Even weirder, Raditz doesn't realize who sealed him in the first place, or why he was sealed, or how. Although he does wonder how strong this Saiyan could be. Clearly he seems very powerful, way more powerful than anything he's ever experienced. As Raditz thinks of his next move and what to say, Cumber then just suddenly turns at him and glares. The glare is enough to instill so much fear into Raditz that he's just paralyzed in place. And within an instant, Cumber launches up into space. With Raditz amazed, can he survive in space too? And where the hell is he going? Raditz has so many questions and is kind of regretting his choices here. What did he just unleash and what was he heading to? Quickly, Raditz goes to his own ship and tries to follow Cumber out into space, but by the time he's already out there, Cumber's far gone. He's moved so far out that Raditz can't even sense him anymore. The small red glow he left behind disappears into the void of space. This all happens right after Frieza is defeated and before the Ginyu Force arrives. Not knowing where to go now, Raditz decides maybe it's best to head over to that planet that Frieza's at. If those Saiyans are still alive, he could at least try and help them. And if not, he wants to make it seem like he has no ill will against Frieza. Because if the two Saiyans screwed up attacking him, then he's gonna get the brunt of it next. And without Cumber at his side, there's not really anything he could do. That really did not go according to plan. The good thing is it won't take him too long to get to base. The ship that he has is pretty fast, it's one of the better ones. And as he starts flying over there, he tries to monitor what's going on with the base. His communications don't pick up any ships going in or leaving. At least not for a few hours. Eventually, 5 ships arrive, which he assumes is the Ginyu Force, but they all don't leave. Only 3 of them end up leaving that planet. Why is there no sort of signal there? He tries even contacting the base too, but there's no response. At least not at first. Eventually someone does pick up, and it's a familiar voice. It's Nappa. Raditz is still out there? He couldn't communicate with their scouters directly, but since they're the only ones there and he was just sending it out into the void, they did end up receiving the message. And he hears everything that happened, deciding to follow those 3 space pods and meet up with them at least. Goku, Vegeta, and Nappa land on a nearby planet, with Raditz also landing there too. So Frieza's actually dead? He can't believe it. But what happened with Gohan? Kakarot's there and clearly he's in very good spirits. He says Gohan's back home safe and sound, and he expects Raditz and the other 2 Saiyans to never try and take him again. Especially because they can't do that this time. And he shows Raditz the brand new power that he has, Super Saiyan. Raditz's stomach drops seeing this, not because Goku's stronger than him, or because he's scared that Goku's gonna kill him, but because he didn't realize that this whole time, they had what they needed against Frieza. He didn't need to unleash the thing that he just unleashed. They wonder why he looks so nervous to see a Super Saiyan. Vegeta tells him not to worry, the Super Saiyan's on their side, even though Kakarot has every right to try and kill them. Thankfully, he's not a ruthless Saiyan like them. Raditz just says, well, he didn't expect to see Super Saiyan. That's why he looks so nervous. Now that they come to think of it, where has Raditz been this entire time? They know he lost contact, but what has he been up to? Raditz tries to come up with a response to cover up his tracks, but before he even can say anything, they notice another ship approaching. They didn't even realize, with Raditz sending that message out into the void, anyone with a scouter was going to get it, and that included King Cold too, who ended up figuring out where they were. Although they're not too concerned because Goku already defeated Frieza, and he did get a slight power boost from that, thanks to taking a Senzu Bean right after. But regardless, it seems like he's going to be okay here. Fighting King Cold for him would be easier than fighting Frieza because of that power boost. And realistically, the fight wouldn't be too long here. Although King Cold does try to attack the rest of the group too. He's not just going after Goku. He needs to make sure all of those traitors feel his wrath. So, Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz all get severely injured in the process. But thankfully with Goku there, they're not dying. So King Cold is able to actually get one last screw you to the rest of the group, but he won't be able to defeat Goku, and even though Goku will have a little bit of a challenge, it's not really going to be that big of a deal here. Although this does leave Vegeta and Nappa injured, but it's not too big of a deal. Especially because now they can steal King Cold's ship, which is much better, and also has healing pods on it. But annoyingly enough, this means that Goku's not going to be doing anything because he has to sit there and wait for them to heal. Since he doesn't know how to fly this spaceship, Vegeta and Nappa had to program the attack balls for him. And this one is a lot more complicated than that too. So he's stuck out here for a little bit more, maybe even a few days given their injuries. He wonders how everything's going at home, and hopes Gohan is doing well. He knows that Gohan is at least in the care of Chi-Chi right now. He tries to contact his friends, but still nothing. He just wants this to be over, but he feels like it is. Their flight back begins. It's a really weird flight because there's a lot of animosity. Raditz is still mad that Vegeta and Nappa abandoned him basically, and Goku's also a little bit angered to have Raditz there too. Plus, he's not really too fond of the other Saiyans, but at least for now they're all on his side. Vegeta and Nappa did kill his friends after all, and they did order Raditz to take his son. He's not going to forgive it that easily, especially because they put him through all of this. Although Raditz tries to argue that it's not his fault, he was just doing what those two told him to. It's not like he could go against their orders because they would just kill him easily. He hopes Kakarot realized that he got some crappy treatment too. He nearly died making sure Gohan was okay. Well, that wouldn't have happened in the first place if he never took Gohan, so it's not really worth saying. And after all this time, Goku finally arrives home. The 3 Saiyans immediately depart, taking that ship with them. Not much is said between the 3 of them or Goku. but he hopes now that they're out of his hair. At least he knows they're not going to be threats anymore and not bother him, although he does acknowledge that they did make for some pretty fun fights. But given the threat they pose to him and everyone here, he'd rather them stay away from Earth for a while at least. And Goku's family finally has the reunion they wanted for a while. And now that we're back on Earth with Gohan, we're going to start going a little bit faster in some other parts of the story that aren't really too important here. This whole series was about Gohan being kidnapped, and the stuff on Earth won't be crazy different, so I'll skim through it and go over what does happen there, but we obviously want to get to the stuff that actually did change in the scenario so far. So in case you notice me moving really quick through some of the next arcs, that's why. After a brief time skip, we arrive to the point where King Cold and Frieza would have arrived on Earth originally, but they don't because they're obviously dead here. Although, a time traveler from the future does show up, warning everyone of two things that they're going to face in the future. And this time traveler doesn't need to hide his identity because he already does exist here. He's not going to cause some paradox by coming back and revealing his identity. It's future Gohan, who ends up surviving as the only fighter in the future. And he explains what happened. Goku eventually does fall into the heart virus, and not too long after, the androids do attack. The androids did end up killing mostly everybody, but Gohan was able to survive, and got strong enough to fight back against them. Given the changes in Gohan's life so far, especially with what's going on in the future, he actually did claim victory over the androids. It took a while, and it took a lot of training to do so. But he was able to unlock a new power that allowed him to kill the androids, and now he's back here to try and reverse everything. Goku's dead from the heart virus, and even if the Dragon Balls were there, he couldn't bring Goku back. Plus, without the Dragon Balls, no one else could be brought back. And while the androids aren't there any longer, he does want to see if he could at least reverse the effects of it. Same for Bulma, that's the whole reason she sent him back here in the first place. And after giving them this warning, Gohan shows off that new power that he was able to get. He transforms into Super Saiyan, which isn't too surprising for Goku. If that's all that's needed to defeat the androids, as long as Goku survives, they'll be fine here. He already has Super Saiyan, Gohan should know that. But future Gohan tells Goku that he's not done powering up yet. By now, Goku's already practiced a lot with Super Saiyan and has gotten better with it. He's maybe on the cusp of grade 2, but not really anything beyond that. Future Gohan tells Goku that he'll really like what he shows off. His power rises far beyond Super Saiyan as future Gohan goes into Super Saiyan 2. He tells Goku, if he survives and is able to access this level of Super Saiyan, they'll be able to defeat the androids with ease. And even better, he turns to his present self. If Gohan's able to learn Super Saiyan at a younger age, that also will really help them there. But just in case, he will return in a few years to make sure that everything's gone okay. And he hopes this is enough of a notice for them to make a change with it. But Goku does ask about the Saiyans. Did they ever return to Earth? And future Gohan says they never returned. Honestly, they were probably scared of him and Goku. But especially now, he knows if his uncle ever did show up again, he wouldn't be an issue at all. Future Gohan returns to his timeline, and now training begins in preparation of the androids here in this timeline. They do opt to keep the androids alive like normal, but they're confident that they'll be able to win here. One big change over this training is how Gohan's training will work. Obviously, we saw in the past few parts that the different events in his life really do affect his outlook on everything. From being in space, he knows that it's best to defend himself and not rely on someone else to do so. And the only way he's going to defend himself is if he grows stronger, and taps into that same power that Raditz was trying to harness. Thankfully, he's already got a huge head start here because he got some great experience out in space. Even though it was a pretty bad time for him, there was some good that came out of it. And ever since he saw Super Saiyan from his father, he decided that he wants to get that too. It actually wasn't future Gohan that influenced him to do that. Future Gohan is also a lot stronger too because of this. But now, knowing that they're going to face the threat of the androids, Gohan wants to get really serious with the training. He needs to unlock that same power to make sure that nothing ever harms him or his friends again. And Goku's pretty glad to see this, and of course he's going to be training Gohan up too. Wondering if he could become a Super Saiyan as well. They barely know anything about Super Saiyan as is. Goku is the only example after all. So what would it be like for Gohan? Despite his age, could he still become a Super Saiyan? And over this time frame, Goku really gets to see what Gohan learned out in space. Despite him not liking being with Raditz, Raditz did teach him some things about fighting. Gohan's fighting style is very different from Goku's because of this. He fights a lot like the other Saiyans, but he's definitely a lot more confident as a fighter than he normally was. And over this training period, Gohan eventually does learn how to access Super Saiyan, earlier than normal. It was all thanks to the motivation from his future self, as well as the bad experience that he had before. And he knows that with this power in hand, he's going to be unstoppable. And thankfully Goku also remembers to take his medicine, mainly because Gohan's the one to remind him. Noticing Goku acting strangely one day during training before the androids arrive, and reminding him that maybe he should take that medicine now. So that leaves Goku in perfect shape. By the time the androids show up, it is androids 19 and 20 that appear. However, they're not too big of an issue. Once Goku figures out the fact that they can absorb energy, he's able to quickly work around what they're capable of. Goku defeats Android 20, and Gohan defeats Android 19. And Androids 17 and 18 are never activated. Future Gohan eventually does return, and is glad to hear that they defeated the androids, but is a little concerned to hear that these are different androids from before. They still need to find where they actually came from, and maybe it has something to do with that guy Android 20. It takes some time to look into, but eventually with some help from Bulma, after a few days they're able to find Jiro's lab. Fortunately, the two androids haven't been activated. They see 17 and 18 there, the same ones that future Gohan had to kill. He considers destroying them right now, but instead, they decide to reprogram the androids because they haven't done anything yet and it's not really fair to kill them. Plus, this happened against their will. As Bulma looks into it, she sees what happened. Jiro kidnapped them and turned them into androids. She can't reverse that, but she can at least take out the programming that makes them evil. She could turn them back to how they were before, and more importantly, remove the stuff that makes them want to kill Goku. Although, because it did take a while for them to find the lab, as they look around, they eventually find the plans about Cell, and by now, he's actually already arrived in this timeline. Piccolo's not with them at the moment, but he doesn't end up merging with Kame because he gets word that they found the lab and everything's alright. Kame does notice something terrifying, and Piccolo goes down to see what it is. It's Cell. Piccolo tries to get more info about Cell, but doesn't realize that the rest of the group already has some info. Without him fusing with Kame, it's a lot tougher for him to fight Cell, but thankfully, the others show up and do help him. So they find out that another Cell showed up from another timeline. And thankfully now they don't need to worry about him because he's killed pretty quickly, thanks to help from Goku and both the Gohans. Plus, future Gohan now knows about Cell, which he didn't know about before, so that's really going to help him when that time comes. And he is glad to see the growth that the two of them showed. He even tells his present self that he didn't have Super Saiyan at that age, and he wonders how quickly they'll be able to get Super Saiyan 2 now that they both know about it. It was a really interesting experience going back in time to see them, and he's glad that he saved this timeline. He might have not reversed what happened with his, but it's not like he got nothing out of it because now he knows about Cell showing up. And he wishes all of them the best. They thank him and say their goodbye. And even though future Gohan didn't get to bring back all of his friends, he still got to see them one last time by coming here. He feels that same hope persisting, as he returns home, ready to defend that timeline from one more threat. So, like I mentioned, we kind of skimmed through that arc really fast because first of all, not much happened with it, but also because we want to get onto the other stuff that happens. Although, it is worth noting, the stuff that I covered about Gohan, that's a big difference here. In this arc, we got to see a little bit more of his different demeanor, which will continue to be prevalent in the story. Now, Gohan being taken out into space against his will, it's not like that's going to morph him into a completely different character. He's not going to become evil or anything. He still is the same pure-hearted, good Gohan. But those experiences did make him have a different outlook on things, mainly when it comes to the fights that he takes place in. He was in a ruthless environment. He knows that he can't be as forgiving as he once was. And while he does have a great group of friends and family to rely on, he can't rely on them all the time. He needs to put in his own work. And it's not just Gohan either. The same goes for Goku too. He has unfortunately seen that some of his enemies can't be reasoned with. People like Frieza, people like King Cold, people like his own brother. He doesn't want to lose Gohan or any of his friends again. And overall, he still is the same Goku. He wants to grow stronger all the time and always looks for a great fight. But at the same time, he recognizes that that power can be used to defend his friends and family. Not that he didn't recognize that before, but now he sees how important it is, with that aspect of his character becoming more relevant here in this story. Less of a change than what happened to Gohan, but still a change worth noting. All that time that Gohan was gone, and the things that happened to his friends in the meantime too, it was a much more grim experience for him than the original Saiyan saga, or Namek saga for that matter. The events did change Goku and Gohan a little bit, but for the most part, they still are the good-natured and optimistic Goku and Gohan that we both know. And over the next few years, they only improve their power even further. Gohan's thankfully able to go back to studying and get somewhat of a normal life, eventually going to school too. But he and Goku find a good balance with training. The two of them do unlock Super Saiyan 2 pretty much around the same time. By now, Gohan's even caught up with Goku in terms of power. And Goku can see that he's about to be surpassed by his son, which he doesn't mind. Of course, Goten's born too. Another person that Goku wants to make sure he protects. And you could probably see this coming, but there's not going to be a Buu saga here either. We get a nice tournament, but with Goku being alive and on Earth, and without Vegeta becoming a Majin there, and with both Goku and Gohan being a little bit more serious and stronger overall, it makes it pretty impossible for this arc to happen, unfortunately. And I know it's kind of a joke with you guys that I skipped the Buu saga a lot, but hey, you know, it's happened more often in some of my recent what-ifs. It was only a matter of time before this happened again. But in all seriousness, with the different events here, yeah, that's not going to happen. So we actually passed a lot of time in this one part alone. We went from essentially what was a stand-in for the Namek arc, to now being beyond the Buu saga. Even if I did spend more time on those other two arcs, it still would have happened that same way regardless. And because of that, I thought it would be a little bit better to save some time in this part as well. Just so we don't need to drag stuff out and spend too much time on stuff that's not really too relevant to the overall plot of the series. Especially with what we set up before. Raditz, Vegeta, and Nappa are still out in space. They never have returned to Earth because, like Kakarot said, he didn't necessarily want to see them again. And at first they actually are kind of terrified of him because he is the Super Saiyan, but at some point they eventually figure it out for themselves, but it's way later down the line and they're still woefully outmatched. But they have no real reason to stop by Earth anyways. And without the influence of Earth, the three of them actually remain as pretty bad guys. Vegeta basically starts his own new empire, although it's very small, and thankfully he doesn't know about the Dragon Balls on Earth or Namek. They still do wonder though, what friend was able to get Gohan back to Earth? And there's also the unanswered question of what Raditz was up to during the time that they were separated. Thankfully they don't pry and Raditz doesn't raise any eyebrows, but Raditz does have some underlying anxiety. What happened with Cumber? He hasn't seen him in years. He has no clue what he's up to or what he unleashed. Maybe it's not that big of a deal though. At least he hopes so. This is where we'll leave off for now. What'd you guys think about this part? And what's going to happen next time? Leave your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. I'd love to see what you guys think. As usual, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help with the channel. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.